Okay, so in this example, we need to compute several quantities using function notation. The function here in part A is a quadratic function, negative 2x squared plus 9x. So think of it as a machine where you put an input x and it'll spit out negative 2x squared plus 9x. What does it mean f of negative 3? All that means is we need to replace the x that we see here and here with negative 3 in parentheses. And then we need to compute what we get. So we get negative 2. Instead of x, I'm replacing it with negative 3. That's going to be squared. Plus 9. And again, we're replacing x with negative 3 in parentheses. And at this point, we just go to the calculator and we compute it. We put it just like that. And we have 9 multiplied by negative 3, so I got negative 45. Okay, so that's my first answer here, so that'll go here. Then I'm gonna compute f of 1. What that means is that I'm replacing x in the expression for my function with 1. And I do not really need to put parentheses, but I'll do it anyway, just so that you remember that every time you're replacing it, just put it in parentheses. There's not going to be any harm anyway. So this is going to be negative 2 times 1 squared plus 9 times 1. Oops. That's 7. Okay, so that will go 7 right here. Now, what happens with f of negative d? So this is a little bit more complicated because that's a variable. So again, we're taking negative d and we're replacing x with negative d. Everything else stays the same, but we're going to put that in parentheses and plus 9 times negative d. We do want to simplify this a little bit. So what you should know is when you're squaring a negative, the negative goes away, because really when you're squaring, you're just multiplying it by itself. And negative d times negative d, the two negatives will cancel, and you're just going to wind up with d squared. So this first term is negative 2d squared. Okay, the other one, this negative will not cancel because this is a plus, but generally we want to write it in the front and then just make this 9d. Okay, so it's like 9 multiplied by negative d is the same as negative 9d. So let's put that in here. So we get negative 2d squared minus 9d. All right, so now we do the second part. And here we have to be very careful and we have to know the definition of absolute value. So here we've got 2 multiplied by absolute value of 5x minus 1. First, we want to compute g of negative 3. So we are going to replace x with negative 3 right here. Okay, but there's no other x to replace, so that's it. So this is just going to be 2, and then absolute value 5 multiplied by negative 3 minus 1. The calculator may compute the inside, but then you will have to find the absolute value yourself. So 5 times negative 3 minus 1. That gives me negative 16. Okay, so looks like that's 2 absolute value of negative 16. Now remember, the default operation is multiplication. And when you take absolute value of a negative number, you are saying how far away is this number from 0? Well, negative 16 is 16 units from 0. So this is just going to be 16. Absolute value is never negative. When you take absolute value, if it was a negative number, it'll become a positive. If it was a positive, it'll stay the same. If it was a 0, it'll stay the same. So this is 2 times 16. You can use a calculator for that. That's 32. So that will go here. The next one is going to be, I think, easier because it's not a negative number, but let's see, g of 1. So we're replacing x with 1, right? So we're replacing x with 1, and then we're going to get 5 multiplied by 1 minus 1, and then still absolute value. So you can compute the inside. That's just going to be 5 times 1, which is 5, minus 1 is 4. So 2 absolute value of 4. Again, the default operation is multiplication. Now, absolute value of a positive number doesn't change. The distance from 4 to 0 is still 4. So this will just be 2 times 4, and that's 8. Okay, so that's going to be 8. The last part is just replacing x with negative d. We can't really simplify much here. So this is just going to be absolute value. 5 times negative d is negative 5d, and then minus 1. Okay, that's going to be it. All right.